Welcome to the Well Off Podcast, where the goal is to motivate, inspire, and share success principles. I'm your host, George Masri. This is part 2 of the interview with Eileen Fauster, a registered holistic nutritionist. And if you listened last week, we covered a lot of things relating to your health and common things that people consume and may not know are bad for them. So we continued our discussions today with dairy, milk, casein, some of these things that your body can't digest and why it irritates your body. And we talked about sugar, cortisol, coffee, and caffeine, the impacts that it has on your energy levels. Also for anyone listening and any of the female listeners, how it impacts your pregnancy potentially. So again, really good stuff in here. I learned tons from Eileen, and I'm so grateful to have had that opportunity to speak with her. I know you guys are going to enjoy it. So there you go. And just a reminder that we have tons of multi-unit opportunities right now because of the way the market has changed. Some off-market opportunities, and then also we have the tools to get stuff on the MLS as well. So make sure to reach out to us. Again, our team is pretty strong. We've got paralegals and everything you need, electricians, plumbers. We can help you from A to Z. Go to welloff.ca. Feel free to reach out there or book a call. And then you can also connect with me on Instagram, welloffx. Make sure to share this with a friend or family member. I know people can use some health advice right now, especially after the pandemic. And I know a lot of people put on weight and that sort of thing. So make sure to share this with someone who would benefit. Thank you for all your support. Thank you for tuning in, and enjoy the episode. Dairy. What are your thoughts on dairy?
Okay. So the first thing I'll say is dairy is the mother's milk of another species. And North America, Europe, it's the norm that we consume some form of dairy, whether it's yogurt, cheese, milk, almost from when we arrive on the planet until the day we leave. So nowhere else in the animal kingdom does one animal consume the mother's milk of another species for the sake of argument every day of its life. But we as humans do. And the problem with that is that dairy, whether we're talking cow, sheep, goat, dairy contains a protein called casein, C-A-S-E-I-N. You see that sometimes as an ingredient in certain foods. And casein is extremely difficult for the human body to digest. Well, better said, impossible. As human beings, as our species, we do not have what it takes digestively to break it down. A cow has 3 stomachs. The calf, its offspring, can digest this milk, absorb it, use its nutrients. A human being cannot do that. So when we consume milk in any form, whether it's liquid, yogurt, cheese, it is A, irritating the digestive tract, and B, it is also coating the inner lining of the digestive tract. So not only is it impeding digestive or nutrient absorption in that meal, but let's say you had, milk and cereal for breakfast. So that milk coats the lining of your digestive tract, impeding absorption of any nutrients from that meal. And then a few hours later, you're having, let's say, a spinach salad. Let's say it's got no cheese. A spinach salad, chickpeas, nuts, seeds, fruits, vegetables. In your spinach salad at lunch, no dairy in it. And your body wants to absorb the nutrients from that spinach salad, but it's impeded because the coating from the milk from breakfast is still blocking nutrient absorption at the lining of the digestive tract level. So it's hurting you not just in that meal, but subsequent meals. And doing that daily can cause a buildup, again, cause an irritation, and it's making it very difficult for your body to absorb nutrients. And as a nutritionist, we say it's not what you're eating that determines your health, it's what you're absorbing. And if you, for whatever reason, cannot absorb nutrients, then you need to fix that at that deeper level.
That makes sense. Now, you mentioned a couple of times, like it's either difficult or impossible for your body to digest. For example, casein. Mm-hmm. What happens to the casein then if your body can't digest it? Does it just come out of your body?
Again, depends on the individual, but clog more than anything else. And a lot of people will say to me, I have problems with milk, and that's why I drink lactose-free milk. Lactose is the sugar. Lactose, it can be irritating for some people, agreed, but we have lactase. Most of us have lactase, the digestive enzyme for lactose. Convenient how they're similarly named. And so those of us with lactase can digest lactose. So there are those who can't or have difficulty, so they have lactose-free milk, which is great, but it doesn't solve the problem of the casein. Casein is everywhere in any dairy product. Admittedly, in goat or sheep, it may be there to a lesser degree, but it's still there compared to a cow. And I will also throw in, I'll mention again and again that labeling laws in Canada are, I'll use the word sketchy. And so you may be, in the grocery store saying, oh, I'm going to buy goat's milk, has less casein. So you're looking, let's say, two different kinds of goat milk cheese. One of them is, let's say, $5, one is $10 for the same size. And you will, well, why would I spend $10? I'll just buy the $5 goat cheese and be on my way. If you read carefully, the $10 goat cheese may say 100% goat cheese. If it does not say 100%, the labeling law is up to 90% of that goat cheese, that's only $5, is cow's milk. So you think you're getting goat's milk when in fact it's still the full casein hit of the cow's milk.
That's so twisted.
Oh, trust me, it breaks my heart. It really does, because as the average consumer, you don't know this. How can you know this?
Yeah.
And you think you're doing yourself a favor by investing extra and getting goat's milk here, or goat milk cheese, or goat milk itself, when in fact you're being swayed by the labeling laws.
Yeah, and it's just so weird to me that dairy's in everything. Anywhere you go, any Tim Hortons, like the muffins, they're probably going to have dairy in them. Any sweet shop you go, whatever, it's just dairy is everywhere around us. And it seems like it's just accepted. But like you said, it's just not good for our bodies.
No.
But that's kind of how it is with a lot of things, with fast food, with so many options out there for really unhealthy things that are so bad for you. And it's so easy to get and it's so cheap compared to the healthy stuff. There's just something wrong with how things are. Okay,
so I'm going to throw out, let's say, to your listeners who are used to hearing a wealth talk. So I'm going to now mention a bridge between health and wealth. And this is something I've listened to your wealth podcasts. And wealth, and I'm sure you'll back me up 110%, wealth takes planning. You don't wake up a millionaire. Correct?
100%.
Okay. So same with health. You don't wake up one day and magically you're eating gluten-free and dairy-free. It takes planning. And can't say it enough. Just like if it's the 29th of the month and you're like, oh, gee, where am I going to get my mortgage payment from or my rent payment? You're in trouble if you're waiting until the 29th to scrounge around to keep the roof over your head in 2 days. The same thing. It's 11:30 in the morning, your stomach is grumbling and you're like, ooh, what am I going to do for lunch? If you're waiting until you're hungry, and chances are in a foreign environment, meaning you're in the office at work and you're thinking, gee, what am I going to do now for lunch? You're in trouble, because chances are you're going to grab what's fast, convenient, and you're in a time constraint because you got to get back to the desk, to your office. You're going to grab something that is not going to serve your nutritional needs. It will fill your belly, but it won't help you. No different than, and you would never tell one of your clients, one of your wealth clients, on the 29th of the month, if you don't have rent, just go to a check cashing place and pay whatever crazy interest rate.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that makes sense. And just being aware of all of this stuff you've mentioned, I think that's a good step to start. Maybe, like you said, I think over the phone, you said it's a lot easier to start putting in a good habit than to eliminate all sorts of bad habits that you have. So, let's talk a little bit about refined sugar, or just like table sugar. What are your thoughts on that?
Okay, so let's call it white sugar. So first off, just about anything white in nutrition is bad. White sugar, white potatoes, white flour. White is usually not a good idea because it means it's been refined and any natural nutrients have been removed. So white sugar does a lot of things inside your body. First and foremost, it spikes your cortisol. And cortisol is a hormone. Cortisol is our stress hormone released by the adrenal glands. Adrenal glands sit on top of your kidneys. So let's talk about cortisol for a second. Cortisol is a hormone that at the start of your day should be very high, and throughout the day, it slowly comes down. And what's great about when it's really high first thing in the morning, that in a perfect, if we get around to talking about it, non-caffeinated world, the high cortisol level in your blood is what wakes you up in the morning. and then throughout the day it slowly goes down. So if midday you ate, or mid-morning, whenever you had something with a lot of sugar, your cortisol spikes. Now it's no longer in that happy bandwidth of sliding downwards. It's now gone higher, maybe even higher than where it was first thing in the morning. And this is throwing off a natural body cycle. And let's say later in the afternoon you have more sugar, it spikes again. Let's say later in the afternoon you have stress at work, because cortisol is your stress hormone, and your cortisol spikes again. This is making it very difficult for many other body functions to happen. So let's say I have a lot of clients right now, female clients in their 30s trying to get pregnant. If their cortisol is constantly spiking, cortisol also works with your estrogen, progesterone, your reproductive hormones, and if cortisol is spiking all the time, it means that your estrogen and progesterone are not where they should be. So in a woman's body, estrogen and progesterone, they peak and fall at different times of a woman's monthly cycle. And if they're not where they should be at ovulation time, it's going to be very difficult for conception and for conception to take place. So that's one, I'll say, bad side effect of having too much sugar. Cortisol, again, when it spikes, can create anxiety in the body. Again, depends on on that particular person. Some are more prone than others. If it's happening all the time, anxiety becomes your new normal state of functioning, which is none of us work well when we're anxious or panicked. What else does sugar do? Sugar is working in the digestive tract. Again, another irritant for the digestive tract. Throws off a few other hormones that relate to natural appetite. The hormone that makes us hungry and the hormone that says, hey, we're not hungry anymore. These can also be thrown off. Those are ghrelin and leptin. Those can also be thrown off by excessive sugar consumption.
Here's the weird thing, though. A lot of people, certain people that I've known, when they're feeling stressed, they go and eat something with sugar in it. Why is that? Why do some people go towards the unhealthy foods when they're feeling stressed or just not feeling good in the moment?
That's a good question. So I'll let the traditional Chinese medicine side of my training answer that. So in traditional Chinese medicine, they have a phrase they use that they like to calm the mind. The mind should be calm. And when your mind is calm, you're relaxed. It's, I don't know, whatever you want to think about, a nice sunset, a cool breeze, being at the lake, what have you. When your mind is calm, you don't want your vice. We all reach for a vice when things are bad. I need a cigarette. I need a donut. I need a coffee. These are all artificial stimulants. I need a drink. Mm-hmm. These are all artificial stimulants. So when we allow ourselves to get out of sync and get into an anxious moment, whether it's because of, let's say, assume it's because of work, then it's, I hate to say it, a natural human reaction. I'm feeling out of sync. I want to feel more out of sync. And we almost hurt ourselves even more. It's unfortunate, but it's a natural human reaction. And what we want is that you get out of sync and you reach for something which brings you back in.
For a temporary moment, because maybe it feels like, I guess maybe it feels good to have that sugary thing or that coffee or that cigarette in that moment.
Or the drink, yeah.
But you're suffering later on because you're putting yourself in a deeper cycle.
A deeper hole, yep.
Yeah, okay. That's interesting. Good to know. All right, why don't we touch on coffee a little bit and caffeine?
Okay, so that's a big topic. So a couple things. Caffeine. Caffeine is an artificial stimulant. So let's talk about why people like to have caffeine first thing in the morning. So before anyone becomes, I'll say, hooked or gets in the habit of having a coffee every morning for breakfast. So let's say you're 15, 16 years old. You're still waking up and drinking water or having milk or juice or whatever as your breakfast beverage, and then you continue your day. And usually most of us get into caffeine because it's cool. First of all, because it's a nice beverage to have. And then people say, hey, guess what? I got a little bit of a perk out of it. I'm going to start having it in the mornings for breakfast and what have you. So as mentioned earlier, naturally, the human body, we have a circadian rhythm. Our body clock says, hey, we always get up at, I'll say in my case, 5:30 in the morning. So by 5:25 a.m., the cortisol in my blood is really high. And so chances are I'm waking up before my alarm does. Or when my alarm goes off, it's not pulling me out of a deep sleep. I'm 3/4 awake already. So for me, it's easy to get up and keep going. For someone who has become reliant on caffeine, the cortisol levels are not that high anymore, because the body says, I don't need to make cortisol in the morning because I know I'm going to get a stimulant, an artificial one from an external source. So you wake up in the morning, your alarm goes off, you're groggy as heck, you drag yourself into the kitchen, you get your cup of caffeine, your cup of Joe, your Java, and you get the caffeine in your body and you go, thank goodness, now you get your perk and you start your day. But the thing is, you've become reliant on something that is artificial. And I use this example, and your female listeners will understand. Any woman over 20 has probably had shellac nails, meaning the fake nails. And they look great on your hands. Your fingers look phenomenal. Your hand looks gorgeous, makes your rings look beautiful. And 3-4 weeks later, you'll have that shellac removed, and your nail underneath is no longer a hard nail. It's now soft. It rips easily. It looks horrible, which makes you want to get more shellac so your nail looks great. But in that moment, what happened is your body said, hey, there's from an external source, I have a hard nail on my finger. I don't need to make that a hard nail underneath anymore. Your body, and so all this to say is your body sees that an external source is taking over a natural body process. So your body stops doing what it's supposed to do naturally. And so to people who have become, I don't want to use the word addicted, but you've gotten in the habit of having a caffeinated beverage, whether it's a black tea or a coffee, first thing in the morning, you've turned off a natural bodily process. So remember when I said cortisol is very high first thing in the morning and then it goes down throughout the day. If your cortisol starts lower in the morning, now it's starting from a lower point, and if you have something that spikes it, it's going to go way above where it was at the beginning of the day. And this is really bad for all the other hormones that work with cortisol. And we have so many other hormones, like cortisol is one of the main guys. And when cortisol is off, it throws everything else off. And it also means for people who have anxiety issues, I don't think we're talking about mental health today, but for people who are prone in that direction, it's really throwing things off for you.
But what about the people that say that coffee is natural, it comes from nature? If you get a really high quality coffee, is that still bad? Or is it okay if you're sourcing it from here?
I mean, an organic source. Is that what you're saying?
Organic source, just a really high quality coffee bean, whatever else.
But it's still caffeine. It's still a drug. You could say, cocaine is naturally sourced. Opium is naturally sourced. Hemlock, natural. But they're still poisons. Not every plant that grows on this planet is good for the human being.
Okay. So just to kind of recap from what I heard from you, coffee spikes your cortisol levels. And then if you're having it regularly, you're telling your body you don't need to produce it naturally anymore because I'm going to give you this artificial spike. So you're waking up with lower cortisol levels, and that kind of triggers your body to say, hey, I need that source, and you're just constantly putting in coffee in your body every day.
And for people that do quit, and I'll talk, if I may, for a moment about why it's important for women trying to get pregnant not to have caffeine. When you're trying to quit, and there are people that do quit coffee, the headaches are brutal because it is a withdrawal. Like, it is a drug. And it's one of those drugs that has no limitations on it, unlike other.
I never used to drink coffee until I met my wife, who's Italian.
Don't blame her.
And she introduced me to espresso, and then I've been having espresso.
I tell, I'm a nutritionist, and I tell my clients all the time, I could go to, Starbucks and inhale all day long. I love coffee. The smell, the flavor, fantastic. But as a nutritionist, I know how bad it is. I won't touch it. I got to tell my wife. Yeah, well, but like I said, when for people that do want to quit caffeine or coffee, usually being coffee, it will be painful. You will have headaches for about a week, on and off for a week.
Well, now for me, I feel like I get a headache for a day, but I don't drink that. I might drink like one shot of espresso in the morning with my wife, but yeah, it does suck. And I never used to have anything like that. It was perfect. I didn't need any coffee. But you're saying that black tea is also not
coffee,
good?
Black
Anything
tea
with caffeine.
Right. So black tea, green tea, and white tea. White tea, usually you see white tea when you're buying, I'll say a fruit flavored tea. Usually it's a white tea base, so it's still got caffeine in it. Admittedly less than coffee, but it's still there. And for people that say, I want a tea that's got nutrients in it, the peppermints, the fennels, the rooibos tea, fantastic. Rooibos meaning red bush, South African. And a rooibos tea, what's nice about rooibos, it tastes enough like a black tea that you can, you put your milk, oat milk, and sugar in it, not white sugar, coconut palm sugar. And so you still enjoy, I'll say, the tea experience without the caffeine. And if I may speak for a moment about caffeine and how it can hinder conception. So for women that are trying to get pregnant, they will do anything to, all the small little habits that they need to break. Caffeine is one of them. And the reason being, as mentioned, that caffeine is an artificial stimulant, which means it hurts your adrenal glands. Your adrenal glands sit on top of your kidneys. Your kidneys, in traditional Chinese medicine, are the main organ that support reproductive function. So if you're hurting your adrenals, you're hurting your kidneys. So you want to get off of caffeine to support your kidneys. So when the kidneys are happier, then it means you've got stronger reproductive function.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
No, I'm telling my wife no more coffee for you.
In fact, well, are we allowed to say that I did help your wife while she was working hard to get pregnant?
Yes.
And caffeine was one of the things that was on the no-fly list.
It's a struggle for her. And I tell her, why do you want coffee so bad? Oh, I just like the flavor.
Of course.
I like the flavor.
And there are those of us, like I'll say, like myself, who enjoy it for the flavor, not for the kick, right?
Mm-hmm.
But the kick it's bad.
Yeah. Okay. Fasting. Let's talk a little bit about fasting.
Okay, fantastic.
And actually, I just want to say that when I had this call with you before we got together, I was telling you about how I used to do intermittent fasting, and I would basically have my first meal at noon, and then my last meal roughly at 8 p.m. And then I switched things around. Now I'm doing it differently. And you were saying, the way you were doing it before is wrong. It's just not the right way to fast.
Correct. So again, I'll start off with traditional Chinese medicine. So the Chinese are very much, and they developed this, over 2,000 years ago, are very much against fasting. They believe the human body needs nutrients on a regular basis, meaning every 4 or 5 hours, if you're not having a meal, you should at least be grazing. When I say grazing, you're having a handful of nuts, you're having an apple, you're having something healthy, as a stopgap to keep nutrition flowing into your body. And I use the analogy, just like you can't put a month's worth of gas into your gas tank, instead you're filling up a little bit, throughout the week or whatever, your body needs the same. So that's number one, is that your body does not like fasting. However, we naturally fast when we sleep, right? For the sake of argument, there's a good 8 hours when you're not eating. And the human body likes it when you go to bed with an empty stomach. The body cannot do two main things at the same time. It can't digest food and let you sleep. And I use as an analogy, another two things the body cannot do at the same time is digest food and let you engage in sport. So, for example, I use my godson back in his hockey playing days. He'd come home from high school. He'd eat, 2 or 3, at 16, 17, eat 2 or 3 sandwiches and then go off to hockey practice. And the coach would have him doing suicides, sprinting up and down the ice. And not just himself, but his colleagues, they'd be, leaning over the boards, throwing up. And the reason their body's doing that is the body is saying, I only have so much blood flow. Either it's going to digestion to help with digestion, or it's going to the major muscle groups, your legs, to help with sport. And it can't do both at the same time, certainly not in a high sport, a high intensity environment where you're sprinting up and down the ice. So the body says, well, if you're not going to stop the sport, and it tries to get you to stop sport by giving you stomach aches. If you're not going to stop the sport, then I'll stop the digestion. Hence, makes you throw up. There's nothing left to digest. Now you can continue with your sport. So same idea. When you go to bed on a full stomach or semi-full stomach, we all know what this feels like. We wake up the next morning, it feels like there's a brick in our stomach, and we're like, ooh, I don't really feel hungry right now. And it makes it easy to go till noon without eating anything. So a lot of people think, oh, this is great. I'll start eating at noon or 1 or 2 p.m. and I'll eat until 8. And most people wait until dinner time when they, the stress of the workday is behind them. Now they can sit down. They've got lots of time in the evening to eat. And they'll eat, a large meal 6, 7, 8 p.m. And then they go to bed 2-3 hours later. That food is not digested. So again, going back to you're not what you eat, you are what you absorb. So nutrients are not being absorbed. In a perfect world, if you must intermittent fast, you start eating when you wake up, 6, 7, 8 a.m., and you stop eating at 2 p.m., 4 p.m. So you've got until from, let's say, 4 p.m. until 6 a.m. the next morning. So that's 14 hours, or if you go till 8 a.m., 16 hours where you're not eating. That is the proper way.
Is that a good thing, or do you believe more that the Chinese thought is better at grazing?
I prefer to go back to the Chinese. So a happy medium is that I'll say like the Europeans, they have their bigger meal midday. So either you're grazing throughout the day from 8 a.m. till 4 p.m. and or having a larger meal midday. And if you do eat 4 p.m. or 6 p.m., you're having something very small. And again, to go back to what we were saying before, you want to plan your day, just like you plan your, I'll say, expenses for the month. You should be the night before or noon the day before or the night before at the latest. You already know more or less what you're having the next day for a meal. You may not be preparing it yourself, but you know where you're getting it from, and hopefully you're getting it from a nutritious source.
Got it. Okay. Another thing I want to ask you about was Beyond Meat and some of these like Impossible Burgers and some of this stuff. What are your thoughts on that?
Okay, so a couple things. As a nutritionist, as I mentioned before, chicken and beef are not bad if they're well sourced, meaning if they're from a clean source, so no antibiotic use, what have you, preferably grass-fed. These are actually very strong, nutritious sources of protein for the body, as well as they're cooked properly. They're not cooked in a high-fat environment or greasy environment. These are actually excellent for the human body. And so to say I'm not going to eat them is a fallacy. I use the example, I like relying on examples, typical fast food meal of a burger, fries, and a beverage. The only thing in those three items that's natural is the beef patty in the burger. And that's the one thing they want to replace. I always say it's not meat that's evil, it's the friends of meat. So it's the gluten in the bun, the zero nutrition in the bun, the zero nutrition in the fries, the zero nutrition in drink. In fact, the bread, the fries, the greasy fries, and the carbonated beverage are all hindering nutrient absorption. And it's only that beef burger that's actually bringing any nutrition to the table. So if you were at a barbecue, a friend's place, and instead of having, a hamburger with a bun and fries and a beer as your barbecue meal, instead you're having that same beef patty, but you're having the roasted veggies, you're having the Caesar salad, and you're having, I don't know, I hate to say water, juice, whatever. Okay, let's let you have your beer. But the rest, you're having everything that you're eating with that piece of meat helps aid digestion. Roasted vegetables, salad, these are helping to aid digestion, whereas the other items are hindering digestion. So it's not beef that's evil. It's the typical friends of beef that are not your friends.
Okay. I have a bit of a selfish question because I really like potatoes, and we usually air fry them. I just use a little bit of oil.
Yep.
But I heard you say at one point that white potatoes are not good. So
right.
Is that referring to like russet potatoes, that kind of?
They contain no nutrition. So you're putting your body through the digestive process, which is takes energy, and you're not getting anything out of it. Better are the sweet potatoes, the sweet potato or a yam.
So all of the other potatoes are useless.
They're minimal.
Gold,
they have minimal nutritional value. If the rest of your plate is, let's say you did have a portion of, let's say, roasted russet white yellow potatoes, and the rest of your meal is some kind of vegetable, whether it's roasted or fresh salad or whatever, and then a clean source piece of meat or chicken, that's fine. I'm not going to say no to that. I just want to say quickly also, air frying, that's a misnomer. It should be air baking. That's what they should be calling it, because the air fryer, it does create that desired crispy texture, but because it's being reached without the use of excessive oils, it's actually not bad for you. So for people out there that like the fried texture, an air fryer is their best friend.
I love the
and with grace and blessing from a nutritionist.
My wife hates it when I want to use the air fryer because I want to use it for everything, and she gets so sick of it. She's like, "Can we put this on the barbecue or roast it in the other stuff?"
Well, that's just it. So thank you for mentioning it. So let's say you're taking any vegetable, whether you're talking carrots, Brussels sprouts, potatoes, sweet potatoes. There's different ways. You can boil, you can fry, you can roast, you can barbecue, you can air fry. So, and they all contain or create different textures. And it brings out a different version of the flavor of that food. So you can eat, let's say a sweet potato every night of the week, but if you're preparing it differently, you get a different texture and a different zing out of it.
Yeah.
So I'm all for using the different cooking methods, of course, with the exception of deep frying. But roast, steam, cook,
Grill.
barbecue, grill. Yeah, there you go.
Okay. Now that marijuana is legal, you're seeing marijuana places everywhere. People, I think, are using it more openly and whatever else. What are your thoughts on the use? Because I believe that it does impact your brain. It does impact certain things. I don't know too much about it, but maybe just get your perspective on it.
Okay. Likewise, I'm not an expert on marijuana or any other street drug.
Yeah.
What I can say, just like alcohol is legal, marijuana is legal. Both of them are neurotoxins, meaning they hurt the brain. They both have to be filtered through the liver. They both contain no nutrition. So they are certainly pulling down your body's ability to be strong. So let's say whether you're a high school athlete, a budding amateur athlete, or someone who's got an important, you play on a men's hockey team, you've got an important game tomorrow night. All of these are reasons to avoid use of those items because it does bring down your overall health. And if you want to perform at your peak, for a particular event, then that's contrary to what you may think it's doing for you. It's bringing you down.
What about the people that say that it helps with their anxiety? I can't go without it. I don't feel good.
Okay, so if you're talking about marijuana and bringing down anxiety, I don't disagree with that, but it's doing it at a cost. Whereas, okay, I'm an acupuncturist. This is not a sales pitch, but acupuncture can bring down anxiety. Better nutrition can bring down anxiety without the side effect of an external agent to do it for you. It's no different than saying, in this case, when you say marijuana brings down your anxiety, it's no different than saying taking, a prescription medication brings down your anxiety.
Right.
Both of them have a side effect. Both of them are hitting your liver.
Right. And then also if you're eating, like, I forget what foods you mentioned increase your anxiety, but if you eat that, or even coffee, because you said it spikes cortisol, and cortisol is impacts your stress levels, right? Yeah. So if you're having coffee all day and then you say, well, I got to smoke some weed to feel better, then maybe you should look at the other reasons that your anxiety is high.
Right. Well, that's what we say is, in nutrition school, we say we pump ourselves up all day with artificial stimulants, sugar, coffee, and at the end of the day, what are we doing? We're eating fatty foods to make us more lethargic, tired, and drinking alcohol, which also makes you more fatigued. And so that's how we bring ourselves. So we pump ourselves up during the day and then bring ourselves down so we can go to sleep at night. Yeah. And it's totally, you're going against every natural rhythm in the body doing that. And it's unfortunate, but it's become, I hate to say it, it's a norm. But there's ways to break that cycle.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and it starts with education, and you heard it here.
Well, I will say, I have, I don't want to scare anyone off from going to a nutritionist, but this is how I'll say work with my clients is, we all want to feel healthier. And it's no different. I'm sure you say the same thing with your clients that are saving and saving and saving and saving for a house. They got to live at the same time. And let's say they know it's going to take 5 years to save for a house. It's one thing to say, go on smaller vacations or less exotic vacations. And same idea, if I have a client that's, let's say, trying to get pregnant or has whatever other health concern, is I'll tell a nutrition client, Monday to Friday, eat clean. Your routine should be clean. Friday night, have fun. And, if you went all week without alcohol, let's say Wednesday you had a really bad day at work, Wednesday night, do not have a glass of wine. Wait till Friday and don't have one glass, have 3 glasses. If you're gonna be bad, be bad. Yeah. And then Saturday morning, teach them the cleansing things to do to kind of help, recuperate from what you did the night before. And I assume you do the same thing. You say to your clients that are saving, you have to have a little bit of mad money. You have to have a little bit of fun. Mm-hmm. You can't be saving and scrimping everything. Yeah. And likewise, nutritionally, if you're clean, I'll use the 80-20 rule, depending on what you're aiming for. If you're trying to get pregnant, it might be more 90-10. But you have to have a bit of wiggle room.
Mm-hmm.
You really do, because we're human. You have to have a bit of fun. But if I teach you how to be healthy and feel good during the week, then you've got, I'll say, more wiggle room on the weekend. And I will also say, nutritionally speaking, when you start feeling good because you're increasing the good habits, drinking more water, eating greens, more greens, what have you, when it comes to the Friday night when you're allowed to sin, you're going to be like, I don't want to sin that much because I want to feel great tomorrow and, do this and this tomorrow, etc. So it is a self-correcting pattern. And I tell all my clients, it's not so much that you're giving up your favorite food, is you lose your taste for it. When you taste health, you don't want to go back.
Yeah. Well, I got to say, I agree with you. It's just, I remember I gave up sugar one year. This was a couple years ago. I literally didn't have like any refined sugar, table sugar, whatever.
Good for you.
And then I just found myself getting back into bad habits.
It's a slippery slope. Yeah.
I would have a little bit of sugar, and then all of a sudden I'm having sugar every day again. And it's so difficult, but I want to really work on what you said, trying to go all week. Going all week. Maybe Fridays have a little bit of sugar so that I can build up that routine like you said. So you inspired me today.
Excellent. If I could have one more topic.
Yeah. Sure.
Okay. So again, just to go back to labeling laws, talking about calories. As a nutritionist, I'm not a big fan of calories because digestive ability is a stronger caliber to follow instead of counting calories regarding what you're going to feel like tomorrow, or whether your tight outfit's going to fit you tomorrow. But now is the norm, or it's the law. Any restaurant with more than 7 or 8 branches has to list its calorie count beside all the foods. Likewise, when we purchase anything packaged, it has its calorie count on there. So a question to your viewers, how accurate do you think those calorie counts are?
If I'm representing the viewers, I'm going to say probably not very accurate.
So what do you think the margin of error is? The legal allowed margin of error is on the calorie counts?
I have no idea. I don't know what. So like, let's say the meal, if you were to actually count it, it would be 250 calories, but on the package, it'll say 200, let's say, something like that.
Yeah. Okay. That's what they want you to believe. So there is a bit of a scale depending on if you're talking about an item 0 to 500 calories, 500 to 1,000, and then over 1,000. If something is listed as over 1,000 calories, the margin of error, the allowed margin of error is 50%, 50. So what says 1,000 calories could actually be closer to 1,500.
Wow.
And so let's say you're a manufacturer of item X, whether you're a restaurant or packaged food producer, you may know, having tested 10 different ways, that it's 1,500 calories. You're allowed to legally write 1,000 on that label.
Interesting. That's pretty twisted too.
Yeah, well, we're here to burst a few bubbles.
I wish instead of calories, they would be more specific as to what the ingredients are, because a lot of times I look at them, and this is like food for my son or whatever, that you're looking at the label and you're like, I don't want to put this. I have no idea what this is. I don't want him to have this, or I don't want to have this myself. But it's just natural flavor or something very vague that you don't really understand what's going on in there. But yeah.
I lived in, as mentioned, in Germany for a number of years. In the European Union, EU, they have extremely strict food laws. And for more than 20, 25 years, artificial food coloring is not allowed in food, whereas it is here. Certain chemicals that are used for preservatives of foods that are still allowed here in Canada and the US have not been allowed in European foods in decades. And it's unfortunate that, we're not as strong as our European cousins when it comes to the rules and regs around food preparation and what's allowed in packaged foods.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, Eileen, I really appreciate you sharing your knowledge. I hope that the people that listen to this found it beneficial as I have. And just to finish things off, do you want to tell people how they can reach you?
Thank you. So email Eileen@essentialbalance.ca. You can find us on our website, essentialbalance.ca. Instagram, Essential Balance Holistic. And on our Instagram, we have... every week we've got gluten-free, dairy-free foods, recipes all the time, including sometimes we have a video series going on right now. We've got Fun with Food Fridays going on. Our next series will be on mental health and foods to help with mental health. And because you can go back in our feed, we've had quite a few ones on hormones, etc. So you can learn a bit. And of course, we welcome for you to reach out to us.
Thank you so much for coming by, and I look forward to speaking again soon.
Yeah, thank you very much, George.
And that concludes the interview with Eileen. That was part 2. So I hope you guys enjoyed listening to all the information she shared. Extremely knowledgeable, as you know. I encourage you to reach out to her if you have any more questions that are specific to your dietary needs. She's been very helpful, even to us personally. We've worked with her on a personal level. So that's it. Enjoy the rest of your day. Thanks for listening to this episode. Your support is truly appreciated. And if you can share this with a friend or family member that might benefit from the information, remember, our goal is to motivate and inspire others to take action and to build wealth and to become well off. Enjoy the rest of your day.